By the time Nwabulu was 3 years old, it was clear that her voice was different. When she laughed, it was a deep, loud bass voice that sounded like a grown man's voice, which seemed to echo unnaturally. And whenever she cries, her wails could be heard from one end of the village to the other. The elders and community women began to murmur of omens and curses. The sun was high, burning fiercely in the sky, as though it sought to sear the earth beneath it. Inside a small mud-thatched hut at the edge of Uboji village, the cries of a woman in labor echoed. Adanna, the wife of Ekene, clenched her teeth and bore down with the last of her strength. Outside, her husband paced anxiously, muttering prayers under his breath. She must make it, he said to himself. She must make it. Finally, the cries of a newborn pierced the air. Ekene rushed into the hut, his heart hammering against his chest. He stopped, shot at the sight before him. The midwife, Mama Ekwe, held up the baby girl, her face a mix of awe and terror. She is beautiful, Mama Ekwe whispered. Too beautiful. But her cry. Adanna, drenched in sweat, reached for her baby. What about her cry? She asked weakly. It is strange, high-pitched. It's like the wind howling through the trees. What are you saying, woman? I do not know, but it feels unnatural, Mama Ekwe replied, shivering. From that day, Nwabulu's voice became the talk of the village. At first, the villagers said it was odd, but harmless. Yet, as she grew, the whisper became darker. By the time Nwabulu was 3 years old, it was clear that her voice was different. When she laughed, it was a deep, loud bass voice that sounded like a grown man's voice, which seemed to echo unnaturally. And whenever she cries, her wails could be heard from one end of the village to the other. The elders and community women began to murmur of omens and curses. Nwabulu's parents became worried. Her father, who couldn't bear the shame, took little Nwabulu to herbal homes, where she was administered several herbs, all to no avail. Her parents, after trying different medicines from different herbal homes, decided to seek spiritual help to cure her male bass loud voice. That morning, her mom and dad took a trip to Oshimili, the god of the river. On getting there, the spiritualist called Nwabulu a possessed child, that her voice was a negative omen and was not of humans, but of the dark spirits. Nwabulu's father believed the seer, but her mom refused to believe, trusting that her daughter was not evil or of dark spirits. And from that day, Nwabulu's father's attitude changed towards her. One afternoon, as Nwabulu played near the river, a group of children surrounded her. Sing something for us, Nwabulu, Adobe, the chief's daughter, demanded. Nwabulu, eager to make friends, began to hum a song her mom had taught her. The other children shrank and ran away, leaving her alone and confused. When she returned home crying, her mother wiped her tears and said, "They do not understand you, my child, but one day they will." At 15, Nwabulu was forbidden to participate in the village harvest festival. Her father, ashamed of the whispers, told her to stay home. "Why, Papa?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "Because your voice frightens them," he said, "and I cannot protect you if they turn against you." That night, Nwabulu sat alone in her room, staring at the moon. She resolved that one day she would leave Ubochi and find a place where her voice was not a curse. At 16, Nwabulu had become a shadow in her own home. Forbidden to speak during meals or gatherings, she resorted to writing notes on scraps of paper to communicate with her family. Even then, her father often ignored her, ashamed of what the villagers whispered about his cursed daughter. As Nwabulu grew to a marriageable age, she attracted so many eligible bachelors who gushed at her beauty but rejected her the instant she spoke. Some called her names, while some questioned the origin of her bass voice. Others laughed at her. Nwabulu became depressed and vowed never to open her heart to any man. Soon, one man named Emeka started showing interest in Nwabulu. He admired her beauty and would go out of his way to catch her attention. Nwabulu adored him, but dreaded the moment he might hear her voice. Each time he approached, she would flee, afraid that her voice would ruin any chance of love. One day, Emeka cornered her in the market and insisted she speak to him. Trembling, Nwabulu finally uttered a word. The warmth in Emeka's eyes turned to disgust. "Is that your real voice?" he asked, his tone dripping with disdain. When she nodded, his words pierced her like a blade. "Your voice is worse than mine. No man will marry you with this kind of voice. How come you have such a horrible voice?" Heartbroken, Nwabulu withdrew from the world. She avoided speaking whenever possible, silencing herself to escape further humiliation. The whispers in the village grew louder as her age mates all got married, leaving her the oldest spinster. Offers of marriage came only from old men or those seeking a servant rather than a wife. But Nwabulu refused, holding on to the hope that true love would find her someday. One fateful day, Nwabulu went to the bustling village market to buy food for her family. As she walked past the stalls, she noticed a young man struggling to pick up a heavy bag of grains that had spilled. Without hesitation, she knelt beside him to help. "Thank you," the man said, his voice filled with gratitude. His name was Obiora, a traveling merchant who had recently come to the village to trade rare goods. As they walked together to gather the scattered grain, a small pouch fell from Obiora's pocket. Nwabulu noticed it and quickly picked it up. Opening it, she saw glimmering gold coins, enough to buy a small fortune. "Wait, you dropped this," she called out, running after him. Obiora turned in surprise. "You could have kept it," he said, astonished. "Most people would." Nwabulu smiled. "It's yours, why would I keep it?" The sincerity in her voice caught Obiora's attention. Unlike others, he didn't flinch or sneer at the deep bass tone. Instead, he smiled. "You have an interesting voice," he said. "It's rare and powerful." Unused to such a response, Nwabulu was stunned into silence. Over the following weeks, Obiora sought out Nwabulu whenever he visited the village. He admired her kindness, her integrity, and most surprisingly, her voice. He told her stories of great singers in distant land with voices like hers, voices that could command attention and respect. For the first time, Nwabulu began to see her voice not as a curse, but as something unique and valuable. With Obiora's encouragement, she started to speak and even sing more freely. The villagers, though initially skeptical, began to notice the beauty in her voice. As their friendship deepened, so did Obiora's feelings for Nwabulu. He admired her resilience and strength, qualities that made her stand out in a world that had tried to silence her. One evening, as they sat by the river, Obiora took her hand. "Nwabulu," he said, "your voice is the most beautiful thing about you. It is strong, like you. I've traveled far and wide, but I've never met anyone like you. I would be honored if you would marry me." Tears filled Nwabulu's eyes. For years, she had been told she was unworthy of love because of her voice. Now, here was a handsome man who loved her because of it. Their wedding was the talk of the village. People gathered to hear Nwabulu sing on her wedding day, her voice echoing through the hills like a powerful melodious blessing. Obiora's love and acceptance transformed her life, giving her the courage to embrace herself fully. With Obiora's encouragement, love and support, Nwabulu went into music, using each lyrics to tell her story, singing about love, trials and victory. She encouraged people with her song. People warmed up to her, loving the unique sound of her voice. She became very popular, earning the love of so many people both far and beyond. Soon she became the most sought after musician in the whole community and beyond. And she became the richest female musician of all time. She gave birth to 4 beautiful children for Obiora, and they lived happily ever after.